I'm super excited just to sit back and listen to Melissa because she's amazing. So why don't you give it to us, Jake? What do we have here? Who's next?
Yeah, man. So I'm going to go ahead and add her to stage. So this is Melissa Hughes, everybody. So she's gonna. I'm on mute. Are you serious? That never happens.
No, she's on.
I'm not on mute. Like, what are you talking about? I'm usually always talking. We're getting there for Melissa. So here's the intro for Melissa. All right, here you guys ready? So Melissa, she's a TikTok influencer. I wouldn't say she's a TikTok influencer. I want to call Melissa the TikTok influencer when it comes right down to it. An international speaker, podcaster, best-selling author. She's been booked twice on the Kelly Clarkson Show and featured in the New York Times bestseller Primal Scream on NBC. She has over 255,000, I'm going to say it again, 255,000 followers on TikTok and over 11 million likes. She's a best-selling author for She Can Laugh, a guide to living emotionally, physically, and spiritually well. And her first children's book, Mommy Loves You When, both published by Dinosaur Publishing House. She's the CEO of Rise Social Media Agency and the host of She Can Share podcast. She has also done missionary work in the UK for several years, and her husband and 2 children, and currently resides in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We won't hold that part again. It's probably cold in Michigan this morning, but it's cold in Michigan too. Melissa, welcome to the stage. Welcome to the show. We are super stoked to have you today.
Thank you so much, Jake. This is super awesome and such an honor to be here. I love your mission, total disruption. Right when I saw the name, I was like, I'm in. Totally attracted me just by the name. And you guys, you and Mike are just such awesome people. So it's great to be here.
Awesome. What are you talking to us about today? We could give you the rest of the day and you could just drop bomb nugget after bomb nugget all the way through. So what's the thing that you're going to bring the audience today?
Today I want to talk about the firebrand effect, how to build a brand that sticks, that spreads, and that sells. So I'd love to open up today and share a little bit about my story.
It's all you, man.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody in the audience has ever had a dream and they felt like, man, it's all coming together. Well, that was me in 2015. My husband and I had the opportunity to move to the UK and we were going to start a church and do some missionary work that we were super excited about. And I can remember sitting on the airplane and looking out my window, and as far as my eye could see was sunshine. And that was how I felt. I was like, oh, I'm just so excited that this whole thing is about to come together. It was like a dream since I was a kid to go and live there. And about a month after moving there, I remember sitting in one of the most beautiful cities in the UK, sipping on a cup of tea, eating a scone with jam and cream. And I got a phone call. And it was my husband. And he said, hey, babe, I've been in a bit of a car accident, but I'm okay. I just need you to come to the hospital. And because he sounded so calm, I was calm. And so I show up at the hospital, I walk through the doors, and my heart hits the floor. And I see my husband stretched out on this hospital bed with tubes everywhere, nurses scurrying about. He's totally high. He's gone on drugs. And I just thought, wow, like things are not okay. And over the next 24 to 48 hours, we find out that my husband was going to be bedridden in a wheelchair. The people that we were going to be leading this church with, they left. The only place that would rent to us was a funeral home in a valley, and I was pregnant. And I just remember like thinking to myself, being like, it's a bump in the road. Like it's a bump in the road. We're going to be fine. I've got faith, right? Have you ever felt that? Like something happens and you just kind of talk yourself up. I said, I have faith, it's going to be fine. But as the weeks and the months ticked on, things did not get better. In fact, they just grew worse as my husband's health problems worsened. The people that we were surrounded with weren't supportive. We felt like I felt like I was barely keeping my head afloat. I now have 2 kids under 2, and I'm struggling with extreme anxiety and insomnia. And this one day, I'm sitting out on my bed, and as far as my eye can see now are headstones. And organ music is coming up from the floorboards from a funeral home happening below us. And I got a phone call. And it was a friend from the States. And she said, "Hey, Melissa, how's it going?" And I said, uh, like we've had some challenges, but we're doing okay. We're doing good. And she just had this long silent pause on the other end of the line. And she said, "Melissa, you know that it's okay just to say that things are really bad right now." And I truly could not get those words out of my mouth because I felt like I was going to have to answer a question that I was totally and completely unprepared to answer, which was, but if God is good, then why would he call us into something so bad? And that question just like hung there for me, and I didn't have an answer. And over the next couple weeks and months, I really allowed the pain, the struggle, the insecurities, the doubts, the fears, all of it just to like come to the surface. And I just had to look at it and sit in it. And I really wrestled with that question. And I'll never forget walking around my house one day. There was a beautiful park near my house in the UK. It was like saving grace during that time. And I was walking around this park, pushing my 2 kids in this stroller and kind of like throwing up this prayer to God saying, how could anything good come from this? And I truly felt like it was almost like God bent down and whispered into like the most tender chamber of my heart. And he said, "Melissa, mountaintop experiences are for sights and inspiration, but the fruit grows in the valleys." And that's a Billy Graham quote, by the way. And I realized that while I so desperately wanted this like pain-free life, I was being entrusted with a profound life. Because you cannot have a triumph without a tragedy. You can't love deeply or risk anything without experiencing heartache or failure. And then I felt like he said one other thing to me that was super random and out of left field. And I felt like I was supposed to post videos on social media. And the very first video that I posted on TikTok got 22 million views, and I ended up on the Kelly Clarkson show. And it was absolutely wild and really took me into a whole nother direction of entrepreneurship. And what I really want to bring to the table today is truly how you create a brand that people want to talk about, that is memorable, and that helps people have the desire to want to work with you. And so I want to talk about today becoming a firebrand. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but these are the clients that we work with. These are the people that we work with, mission-driven leaders. And if you look up what a firebrand is, right? It's a person who is radically devoted to a mission or a cause and takes radical action. And so what I want to talk to you about today, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're somebody that maybe feels a little burnt out, I really want to ignite a fire. I really want to help you have a message that is memorable and a message that makes an impact. I don't believe that I'm here today. I don't feel like I'm called to help you identify your target audience. I feel like I'm called to help you figure out who the captives that you're called to set free. I don't want to help you figure out how to post online, right? I want to help you turn your message into a movement. That's a firebrand. And so I believe that you're called here to solve problems and bring breakthrough to people on the earth, not try to find significance in building a personal brand and do it just for the sake of doing it. You're meant to start movements. You're meant to break chains. You're meant to light fires in people's hearts that change their lives, that change their families, that change their legacy. So that's what I want to talk to you about today is how do you do that? How do you do that successfully? And as a byproduct of showing up that way, you make more money, you impact more lives, you grow your followers, and you live a really significant and meaningful life for your family and for yourself. So, we're talking about building and being a firebrand, not just building a personal brand. So, for those of you that are teachery, I love teachery people. I am not teachery, but I have an acronym that I feel like teachery people love if you have notes, and it's with the acronym FIRE. So we're going to go through those principles today. So for the F for fire, the main thing, the foundation of your brand and showing up online, getting clarity, all the things, right? Making your message turn into a movement, making it memorable, all of that, is you need to focus on your story, right? I showed up here today. I shared with you my story. And some of you might not be people of faith. Some of you might be, but regardless, you got to share your story and understand your story because it will define who you are and make you stand out. People will either be attracted to you or they'll be repelled by you. And you have to stand in being good and okay with one or the other. And you have to focus on knowing and identifying your story, not just building a business. You got to know who you are meant to help by understanding your story. And oftentimes it is the person that we're helping that's, that was in the muck, that was in the mire, right? And a lot of times entrepreneurs I find don't want to look at the muck and the mire that they've walked through. They want to just, get the followers, get the fame, make the money. But what people are going to be attracted to is your valley, is your vulnerabilities, are your challenges. So you got to look at your story. And I'm going to give you an example of this, of how this helps make your business viral, turn your message into a movement. There was one of our clients. He had this brand, okay, and it was called Unstoppable. And we had worked with them for a little bit, heard about him, and he was all about wanting to help you be unstoppable in your life, right? Unstoppable, unstoppable. We get on the call one day and I said, tell me why it's important to be unstoppable. Like what's so important about that for you? And he really sheepishly, and this took a while to get this out of him, he said, well, actually, there was a time in my life where I was almost stopped. And he said, I don't really talk about this, but there was a moment in my life where I was going to commit suicide. And I almost want to give a, disclosure to anyone that might be struggling with that and know of anybody, if this is triggering for you, know that I'm saying this with all sensitivity, but he shared that with me. And I said, really? Have you ever shared that before? He said, no, I haven't. I said, why have you not shared that? He said, because I just feel a lot of shame around that. I said, but that's your story. That's why you're so passionate about people being unstoppable, was because you were at that point. And so we worked with him on developing his brand story, right? That it's really what he's about isn't about being unstoppable. It's about men's mental health and focusing on that. We brought clarity to his message. And this is what happened. Next time he was at a networking event, he's talking to somebody, and instead of saying, "Oh, I'm building a brand about being unstoppable," the person says, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm passionate about men's mental health. We focus on that." She said, "Oh, how did you get into that?" And he said, "Well, at one point I struggled with suicidal thoughts, and now this is where I'm at today." And he shared his story. Do you know what happened? He got booked to speak at the Olympics. She said, "That's fantastic. That's absolutely amazing." She said, I love your story. They talked about it. It was obviously a little bit longer than how I'm sharing it now. But she said, "I love your story. I'm going to book you to speak at the Olympics." And so instead of just showing up and saying, "This is what I do, this is the business I got," he shared his story. When you focus on sharing your story, it makes you memorable. Why? Because stories stick. Stories are things that are memorable. People don't always remember the lessons unless you teach them through a story. If you're lecturing, I have kids. Every time I lecture, it's like in one ear, out the other. But when I tell a story, they catch it. So tell your story. Are you telling your brand story? Because it's going to make you memorable in the space. And do you know your story? The next thing is the I, right? F-I, fire, is you got to take inventory. I love this was already mentioned today. You got to take inventory of who you are and you got to own it. I don't know if you have noticed this, but I have noticed that there are so many people that are stopping themselves because like, I don't have enough, right? I don't have enough followers. I don't have the connections that Steve has. I don't have that. I don't have a podcast. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. Well, here's my question. What do you have? Who are you? We're so often looking at the success path of all these other people and we're doing we're going and chasing what they're doing. But if you could take an inventory of the gifts, the skills, and the experience that you have, I promise you, you can multiply your message. Let me give you a quick example, right? I post that video. First video I post, it goes on Kelly Clarkson. It seems wonderful, but I actually have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not an influencer. I don't know how to do this video stuff. This is what I had. I had a phone. And actually at the time, because we had just moved home from the UK and it was COVID and I needed a job, I was working in childcare. And so I'm working in childcare, trying to figure it out, feeling absolutely defeated. And I have this video pop and I'm like, man, I have a video, I have a voice, and I have a phone. And I have 1 hour on my lunch break while working in childcare. I can't really dance that great on TikTok. I'm not going to be a dancer, but I could tell stories. And so that's what I did. I took 1 hour out of my lunch break, posted videos in my car, and grew my account to, 250,000 people because I took inventory of what I had and what I knew I could do. And I didn't even, you know what I talked about? Motherhood. Talked about stuff that like how to, teach your kids how to get ready in the morning without you, like simple things. And you know what happens when you actually get real with yourself and think, I don't have all the things that they have. I don't have the production team and blah, blah, blah. But this is what I do have. I promise you, it's almost like God just gives it a little kiss when you take action on it, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, and you move on it and it grows and it multiplies. We have a client as well who did this, and I'm going to talk about in the next thing. But the thing that's going to trip you up is looking at and afraid of what everybody else is doing. My daughter recently, she was riding her bike, and she's ahead of me a little bit. And as she's riding her bike, I see her stop in front of this house, and she's talking to these kids, right? She's talking to these kids, and I'm kind of watching the interaction. I'm a bit of the ways back, and these kids just like kind of run away. And my daughter's like sunshine, okay? I rock up to my daughter on my bike and I say, hey, baby, what's wrong? And I can tell like her face looks discouraged. And I said, what's wrong, honey? And she said, I like pulled up on my bike to like say hi to these kids playing in the yard. And I said, hey guys, what you doing? And they kind of looked at me and they said, oh, you're weird. And then they ran away. And I said, that's interesting. So let me just get this straight. You pull up on your bike and you try to talk to these kids and you're friendly and all this. And then they called you weird and then they went away. She said, yeah. I said, oh, baby, do you know what that just means? She said, what? I said, they're just not your people. And she goes, oh, okay. And she just goes, she just rides on. And if there was like a message I could give you today when you're thinking about taking inventory of your life and looking at what everybody else is doing, is that when you start to move on the gifts and the talents that you actually have and the things that you have in your back pocket, and if people don't get it and people don't understand it, guess what? They're just not your people. And if you could take even 1% of the population and find your weird group of people that like the things that you like, there's a woman that I know that she's interested in Star Wars and quilting. And she's made a 6-figure business talking about Star Wars and quilting because she's found her people and she doesn't worry about what other people don't have. And so I want to encourage you to take inventory of what you do have and think, this is enough. This is enough. And as you move on that, more will come. So that brings me to the next part is taking radical action. That's the R. F, focus on your story. I, take inventory. R, radical action. Radical action. A firebrand is a person who is passionately devoted to a mission or a cause and takes radical action. Do you know what I call this in my coaching? Sweaty armpit time. Sweaty armpit time. Do you know what sweaty armpit time is? It's when you actually have a physiological response because you're doing something that's uncomfortable that you get sweaty armpits. If you don't have sweaty armpit time at least once in your week, you might not be taking enough radical action. And what does that look like? It means sending the email. You know, these speakers, they are fantastic. Send the email to Steve, send the email to Jake, send the email to Mike and say, hey, I would love to have you as a guest on my podcast. I would love to have you on my show. Hey, I would love to introduce you to so-and-so. But bring value, just like Steve said. Do it. Take radical action. So many of us, and I loved what you guys were saying as well, we're afraid of the no. You know what I tell my kids all the time? I took my son to get his haircut. He gets his haircut, right? At the end, there's like a little bucket of lollipops, right? And so he grabs the lady said, you can have a lollipop. So he takes his lollipop and then he looks at her and he says, can I take two? Can I take one for my sister as well? And she says, okay, sure. The other kid next to him, he only got one. Do you want to know why? Because he didn't ask. I say to my kids all the time, you can ask, always ask. Just be okay if you get a no. Okay? But I always want you to ask, but just be okay if you get a no. And if you can do that, then taking radical action isn't as scary because you're like, I can send the email. I can book, pitch myself for the show, send the post the video, whatever it is, whatever your chicken line is that you won't cross over. As long as you're okay with, it might not work out. And I'm cool with that because I'm going to keep going because I'm a firebrand. And this is what I do. I take radical action. One of our clients, Michelle, this was her. She had finished our speaking program. And I looked at her and I said, so Michelle, how many times this year would you like to get booked on stage? And her response, she's such a sweet lady. She goes, oh gosh, Melissa, whatever God wills, whatever he's got in store for me. I said, that's so lovely. I love your heart in that. But what do you want? What do you want? And she goes, man, that's a good question. And I could tell it was sweaty armpit time for her to actually say it, like to even tell someone your dream, sweaty armpit time. So she goes, I'd like to get booked on stage 10 times this year. I said, fantastic. Let's write it down. Do you know what happened? She got booked on 10 stages in 6 months, not a year, 6 months, because she actually she wrote it. She told somebody, which was radical action step number 1. She wrote it down and then she pitched herself for some shows and some podcasts and some stages. And she took radical action and her firebrand had momentum. And the third thing, am I okay on time there? Jake? Yeah, I'm good. Okay. The fourth thing, E, evangelize, right? You have to evangelize your message. You want to know what one of the biggest platforms right now is? Social media. We don't oftentimes think of it as a stage, but do you know, and I'm not doing this on braggadocious Mel, but the opportunity right now to get on to go, like you've got a message inside of you, to get on your phone and post a video is ridiculous. The opportunity to reach people from your couch and for people not to be valuing that and taking advantage of that and being like, oh, I'm stuck at 200 views. I don't give two hoots. That is a skill that you can learn. And those are 200 people that you are impacting. I have to be honest, you could be so successful with those 200 people. Imagine if you focused in, everyone's wanting to go wide. Do you want to know what my strategy is? I want to go deep. I want to go deep with those 200 people. I want to bring so much value to those 200 people that my phone is ringing off the hook because they're like, Melissa, I love what you're putting down. You're my people. Remember we talked about that? You're my people. And your business could skyrocket with those 200 people because you are being authentic. You're taking inventory of your weirdness, of who you are, of your skills, of your talents, of who you actually are. You're showing up by taking radical action, and you're evangelizing by creating content, putting it online, and doing all the things. I mean, this is so, we have no excuse. That's all I'm going to say. We just have no excuse right now. We have no excuse. And if you are afraid, like there's other factors. If you're afraid of how you look online or you're not sure what to say, hello, none of us do. We all had to take weird, cringy action and feel super awkward about it. And the only way that we got better was by doing it. That's it. You don't even have to call me for coaching. I gave it to you today. That's it. And if you love it, you'll talk about it. If you're not evangelizing your message, there's got to be something in you that's not in alignment with it. I was pumped to show up today and talk to you about being a firebrand. PUMPED. Pumped. Because I believe in it. I want to tell you about it. I want to help you. I want to talk about it because I think it's so awesome. I'm in alignment with it. If there's something in you that doesn't feel like I want to show up and talk about it, it's because it's something in you. It's not good for you. You're out of alignment. It's crisscross applesauce. We got to get you out of that and into alignment. When you find your thing, you will be so excited. You'll be so excited that you're like, oh my gosh, they're like, there's this taco place by my house. I'm telling everybody, go get those tacos. You are going to be so blessed by those tacos. I'm telling you now, they're going to hire me as their PR person because I'm telling everybody, go get the tacos. So get on fire, FIRE. And I want to give a free gift if that's okay. I'd love to give a free gift to you guys.
100%.
Great. I have this storytelling workshop. It's all about storytelling, how to identify your story and how to tell stories in your content at networking events to be more memorable. And I want to give it to you for free. You can use code DISRUPT. So if you go to www, I know that's just for you guys.
Thank you.
www.melissaleehughes.com. So that's MELISSALEA Hughes.com/story. You can put your information in, and then there's going to be an option for a code there that you could put disrupt. And you're going to get that. Now, I think that it's only available till like Sunday. So take radical action and get it. I really think it'll help you.
I'm taking that.
So
I'm doing it.
good. So good, Melissa. Like I said, I've done this before. There's all the stuff in the bottom. Hopefully I got it right. melissaleehughes.com/story. And the code is disrupt so that you guys have got that. Thank you so much for all that you do. And Melissa is one of our battleground coaches as well. And the reason she is because of that passion that's right there, of her absolute desire to create what she talks about. Like you can't not see it. So grateful for that. Thank you, Melissa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa. True disruptor. Awesome stuff.
Thank you so much.